Hi, hello, and welcome everybody. I hope you enjoyed your break and thanks for joining us for the second part of NIS audience on its first day. For those who are only joining us now, welcome and enjoy this session. I would like to gently remind you, everyone, of our code of conduct. I will be sharing the link now with you so we can make this space, as friendly as possible. So the time has come, the time that most of you has waiting for this summit. So the TikTok panel. TikTok was the most downloaded app in 2018, and 3/4 of its users are under 24. But legacy media and freelance journalists have found more purposes on TikTok than just engaging with younger audiences. So this session will be moderated by Francesco Zaffarano. Welcome, Francesco. Francesco is Will Media's editor-in-chief. And well, Francesco, I'll let you introduce our fantastic panelists that we will be talking for the past 2 months. We are so happy for this panel. Hope you enjoy it.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm very excited to be here with you today and kind of nervous because, as Hanga said, this is a very much anticipated panel. And of course, we're talking about TikTok, which is probably after coronavirus, the hot topic of the year. So today we are hearing from Julie Lelivre, the Platforms and Audience Development Manager at Le Monde. Hello, Julie. Hi. Patrick Weinhold, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Head of Social Media at Tagesschau. And hi, Patrick.
Hi, moin from Hamburg, as we say here in northern Germany.
And last but not least, Elise Johnson, who is Head of Social Media at The Telegraph in London. Hi, Liz.
Lovely to be here.
Nice to have you all here. So we decided to start this panel giving all of you a very quick chance to tell us what are you doing right now on TikTok, what Tagesschau, Le Monde, and The Telegraph look like on TikTok. So we'll be giving you approximately 5 minutes each to go through a short presentation to introduce your publication on TikTok with us, and then we will move on with the discussion. So first one to go is Julie. So if you want to tell us more about what Le Monde looks like on TikTok.
So hello everyone. I work at Le Monde in the marketing team. I'm not a journalist myself, and I work on the development of our audience on external platforms, such as social media, obviously, and audio and video content. So Le Monde is very new on TikTok because we launched our channel on the 15th of June 2020, so a bit more than 3 months ago, for an initial 1 month test because we wanted to see if Le Monde could be on TikTok and if it makes sense. During the summer, we slowed down a little bit our rhythm because we needed to find a new organization in the newsroom to be able to continue to publish. And beginning this week, we are going to be much more active on TikTok again. And this time, in the long run, it's not a test anymore. We are going to stay on the platform. So our launch was driven by 2 principles, rigor and creativity. Because we are Le Monde, an esteemed newspaper, our production on TikTok needed to reach the same level of quality and trustworthiness than any other content we publish on any other platform, including our newspaper. But at the same time, if we want to reach an audience on a new social media, we need to adapt to its codes. And on TikTok, it means being accessible, creative, and very visual. So our newsroom and our journalists came up with different formats on TikTok, like data visualization, explaining the news through everyday life objects, or drawings to explain complex news. We also try to tackle fake news on the platform with fact-checking and media literacy. And in the upcoming weeks and months, our goal is to build a real community on TikTok. We will answer a lot of comments with video answers too, and we want to run some lives. Since June 15, with less than 40 videos, we gathered 63,000 subscribers and almost 800,000 likes. And our average watch time is 19 seconds, which is quite good for TikTok, according to our partner at TikTok.
So now it's time for Patrick, who, as I said before, is the head of social media at Tagesschau. So slightly different publication. So you work for a TV channel. Do you want to tell us more about what TikTok means for you?
Glad to be here and to share our insights about TikTok. We launched an account 11 months ago, and that was quite a hard time we had at the beginning. In the German media, there could be read statements like, "You guys are crazy, you are investing money in Chinese dictatorship." Immediately after our launch, "How dare you, Tagesschau?" Those statements could be read in November 2019. Immediately after we started, the fuss was quite big. Tagesschau, Germany's most traditional flagship news brand on the probably most controversial social media platform of the moment back then in November 2019. I mean, to make you familiar a little bit with our brand, Tagesschau, and with the transformation task we had to go, this is what our brand is mostly known for. It's TV news. It reaches 10 million Germans every night at 8 p.m. with a daily news show on television. It's a little bit like a campfire atmosphere there, public service mandate we have. It's written down in the law that we need to inform the public, and meaning everyone in the public, and enable them for political decision making. Our brand is known for being fact-based, reliable, and reporting unexcitedly. So pretty much a hard task to go on a platform like TikTok that was known for dancing videos and cool creative stuff that kids did. And this is what the news show looks like, to give you an impression of the little dusty image we have.
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau.
So you see very, very traditional setting, like most of you do, have these news bulletins, these traditional classic news bulletins in your own countries. However, we had a problem. The problem was that so far on our own platforms, TV, homepage, and app, we reach an average people over the age of 40. In television, it's even over the age of 60. So to be honest with you, these statistics that I show you here on the left-hand side, they go up every year. The audiences in the traditional channels grew older and older. I put you in comparison the statistics of social media accounts that my team runs on the other side, and the statistics turn upside down. We reach younger audiences there, and with TikTok now, the audiences are getting even younger, very young. 13 to 17 years old is the largest group of follower we were able to reach there with news. And to be honest, we created a strategy to reach those young audiences back in summer 2019. And as I said, there were not much media accounts back then on media brands on that platform. It was pretty much the Washington Post having a little account there. However, we said we need to give it a try on the platform for fun and dancing videos. So the guy you just saw in the traditional news show, Jan Hofer, you will see him now again on our first TikTok clip we launched. Of course, we came up with a dual strategy. It wasn't only fun and behind-the-scenes images, a little bit self-mocking, but we also said we wanted to start news there. As I said, the echo in the press was huge. I'm not going to go into detail now. Whenever you have questions about that, please tell them post them later to me. I will be happy to answer it. But this was our mission statement back in November. We wanted to start a very early test on that platform. We wanted to arouse the interest of these young audiences. We wanted to stay our news brand, the image, the news brand Tagesschau was mostly known for, be reliable, be critical, and easily to understand, a source for news on TikTok for these young children. In numbers, this experiment went extremely well. I'm responsible for the social media department here at Tagesschau for 7 years now. I never saw numbers like that, even not with Instagram. Now, after 11 months, we reach more than 1 million followers. Today, it was 652,000. 14 million of likes. And again, these numbers go up and up and up. As I speak, we might have 100 or 200 more subscribers, which is really, really insane. And to give you a little insight, our audience is female. 70% of our users on TikTok are young schoolgirls, only 30% males, which is for news consumption. It's quite an argument, actually, quite an interesting thing, as news consumption in traditional media is very male dominated. So let me show you some of our news clips.
5 Kilometer großer Brocken aus Staub und Eis auf seinem Weg durchs All. Das ist der Komet Neowise. Wir können ihn gerade ausnahmsweise sehen.
And
jetzt,
look at these numbers, 1.7 million views,
Neowise fliegt gerade
300,000 likes,
besonders nah an der
30,000
Sonne.
shares. And again, some from the fun section. She's a traditional news presenter as well, like Jan Hofer, the guy you saw. And she answers questions, how she prepares for the daily news bulletin. So that was it from my part for the beginning. I'm very happy to answer your questions later. So back to you, Francesco.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Really interesting. And now to Liz Johnson, Head of Social Media at The Telegraph.
So at The Telegraph, we didn't take the decision to go onto TikTok lightly. Sometimes as a legacy newspaper, it can be difficult to go onto a very old new platform. It can be something of a juxtaposition. So we know that we have a really big responsibility as a social media team to not only respect our legacy, but to ensure that we stay relevant to our audience. So the reason we went onto TikTok in the first place was because of the amount of young people that we could see move into that platform. We thought this is a great opportunity for our free content to be seen by new viewers and exposing a new generation to our brand, which is sort of trustworthy and reliable journalism. We decided very early on that we weren't just going to go for virality, that we wanted to sort of stay true to our mission to inform the public. So we decided we weren't going to jump on all the challenges, but if we felt we were able to add some journalistic value, then we'd attempt it. So our first TikTok was it sort of mimicked a traditional social video. So much like you could imagine this being on Twitter or Facebook. So I'll just play this for you now. So, but we soon realised we weren't getting much traction with this more traditional social video and that we needed to be a bit more creative and original. So we started experimenting more with our video styles. And that's when the social media team really started to have fun with it and we started to see results. So it wasn't really until our 6th TikTok that we saw how powerful this platform could be for The Telegraph. The video I'm about to show you had, I think, 12 million views. It's starring Asha Hussain and produced by Jordan Kelly Linden. And it was about dispelling the myths around coronavirus. This is back in March when it was still felt relatively new to all of us. So that was really successful for us and really gave us a taste for TikTok. However, sadly, this video was actually taken down 2 weeks later because of music violations. So from now on, we use our own music. Since then, we've really enjoyed the creative freedom that this platform offers. So I'm just going to run through really briefly some of the experiments and styles that we've tried. So this first video, we're discussing mental health with one of our journalists, and we've got a voiceover, and we're annotating with cartoons what she's talking about.
Hi, I'm Naomi Southwell, and I'm a reporter at The Telegraph. This is my story. The news of Caroline Flack's death was triggering for me because it transported me back to a time when I was most vulnerable.
So this was a really great way for us to sort of tackle a really difficult subject, but one that we felt was important to discuss with our audience on TikTok. The second video I'm going to show you is using the medium of breakfast cereal to explain to a young audience that while the COVID virus is very infectious, it isn't as deadly as other viruses. So we're going to show you. I'll just skip to the cereal bit.
This is how many people were affected by SARS, which had a fatality rate of 9.6%. Ebola affected 28,000 people, 50% of whom died.
And then the next video is quite interesting because it's very basic in style. We just literally cut out graphics from our website to explain the coronavirus. I think this was back in February. So again, people weren't as informed about it.
They can sometimes mutate and infect humans. This has happened before. In 2002 to 2003, another coronavirus known as SARS spread from China to more than a dozen countries and killed about 800 people. Experts are worried we might have another SARS-like outbreak on our hands.
So obviously this homemade style is something we couldn't really get away with on our more traditional platforms. But the TikTok audience responded really positively to it. And then this final video is just one of our social media editors on a green screen talking about the Women's Champion League. Again, I don't think we could put this on our more traditional platforms like Facebook or Twitter.
Today is the return of the Women's Champions League, the greatest tournament in Europe. Now, if you don't know what that is, fear not. I'm here to tell you everything that you need to know, including...
So since joining TikTok, I think in January, we've only put up 27 videos, but we've had 1.3 million likes and 97,000 followers. While we certainly intend to continue investing time and energy in TikTok because it's a great brand awareness exercise, I don't envision it becoming the strongest arm of the Telegraph for social media because it's quite difficult to turn these views into website clicks and subscribers. And often the content isn't reusable on our other platforms because of its sort of unpolished, organic TikTok style. So while we won't be pouring all of our energy into it, I think we'll continue to use TikTok to reach out to this younger audience when we think it's time to be relevant to them. Thank you. Stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you, Elise, and thank you all of you for sharing with us your insights on the platform. I would like to start asking you a first question because I saw this element like appearing multiple times in your presentation. So first of all, I noticed that a lot of, like many of you are focusing on the use of data journalism and like a way of talking about data journalism in a more friendly way, in a way that is closer to the our daily life, using like daily everyday life objects, for example. So first of all, like Julie, would you like to tell us more about this choice? Why are you focusing so much energies on data journalism? Is this like a strategic move for Le Monde, or you tell us?
Yes. So Le Monde has a lot of experience in data visualization, obviously on the newspaper, but even more on the digital platforms on our website. But also, for example, on YouTube, we use a lot of data explanation through motion design, and we realized that it was something that worked very well to explain complex news with diagrams or small cases and things like that. So this is something that worked very well for Le Monde on every platform. And so when we wanted to go on TikTok, we were thinking how to adapt this knowledge in explaining news through data visualization. And our journalists came up with the idea of using everyday life object, because it was something very creative that was really that was something that people were doing on TikTok already, not for news, but for other content. So that's how we came up with this idea.
And I imagine that, for example, for Patrick, it hasn't been difficult, for example, to bring people's faces on screen, because of course you work for TV, but for both Julie and Elise has been. I'm wondering if this is a problem, if this is difficult. How do you select the right people to bring on the platform with their real face?
Well, let me get into this really quick, because it wasn't that easy, Francesco, to be honest.
Okay.
For example, Jan Hofer, the guy you saw in the video, he is the chief anchor of our news bulletin in the traditional TV show every night at 8 p.m. For him and for all the other presenters, the traditional TV presenters, it's not that easy. It's not just saying, well, I want to be on the TikTok account, and you go to them, you tell them, oh, we want to start a new project. It's on that funny platform, TikTok, and then they are all on it and say, yes, we want to be your anchors there. So you need to get into dialogue with them. You need to explain them a little more what you want to do there. There was in our organization, we had huge discussions here, to be honest, internally, if it's the right move for a brand like Tagesschau to be on TikTok. It's not a smooth player, TikTok. There is all this political discussion about the platform going on. And this is, of course, what news journalists here in my organization also care about. So you need to explain it. You need to go into details with them about your strategy. And the news presenters, they are just the one side of our strategy. I have now 3 young, talented presenters, new presenters that we got, that we casted for our TikTok presence, because TikTok account, because we said we need younger people than the traditional ones. The traditional ones are just the ones that go into that you can see on videos where we show a little bit about behind the scenes, because there's this myth about our brand, about the TV brand Tagesschau. But the news, if you look in the news section, it's the young, talented presenters, young female journalists that explain news to our youngest audiences on TikTok. So we needed to cast them as well.
This is really, really interesting. Thank you, Patrick. And I don't know if Elise maybe wants to add something more about this from like a newspaper point of view.
Yeah, so for us, it was quite a simple decision, because everyone that you see in our TikToks is a part of the social media team already. We've sort of not put on our more traditional journalists yet, because we've not found the sort of right language for them to be speaking on TikTok, whereas it comes much more naturally to the social media editors, because they're digesting this information all the time. They use TikTok personally, so it's much easier for them to perform sort of naturally and feel native to the platform.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Julie, do you? What was your experience? Did you have problem like finding the right people to involve in this project? How did you cast them?
So we didn't really cast them. Actually, we've been having a Snapchat Discover edition for 4 years now. And the editorial team for the Snapchat edition was very enthusiastic in taking care of our TikTok account because they already knew how to talk to a younger audience. And so it was very natural for them to try and be on TikTok. So on Snapchat, they usually don't really show their faces. It's more images and motion design, etc. But on TikTok, they wanted to try to be there, and for now, it's working very well for them. So yeah, that's not something we are used to do at Le Monde in general, but yeah, that's our Snapchat team, who is now a Snapchat and TikTok team.
I see.
I guess the main challenge for every one of us is you need to find the right language to talk to these young audiences. And of course, people that are used to social media, as Elise said, they are more used to the language. They are used to eye-to-eye contact in the reporting. And this is what it's all about, to talk to your communities. You shouldn't be the kindergartner on the one hand when you talk to young kids, because they don't take it serious then, and they think it looks cringy then very quick. If you as an old person think, oh, you need to talk to kids, and you try to use a cool language now, or a hip language, so you shouldn't be the kindergartner on the one hand. However, you shouldn't be the professor of the university professor on the other hand, which makes it quite hard. And I think that younger journalists they have it a little easier in finding the right language than the traditional news speakers in TV. However, this is also something that we try now to see how this works out, going there to TikTok with at least in some videos, the traditional presenters, and the kids think the young audiences think it's kind of fun to see those people from our traditional brand performing there as well. So it's for us, again, it's a mix.
I see your point. I definitely see your point on the right tone of voice. I'm wondering if it's also a matter of the topics that you folks select for your content on the platform. Is there a specific set of issues you like to keep like dealing with on TikTok, or is it more like a selection of all the things you have in a week, you just pick the right bits for the platform?
So for us at The Telegraph, we make sure that we're not patronising our audience by choosing young conversations. And it's really interesting, when we've spoken to TikTok previously, they've said, oh, you can jump on these challenges. The best videos are 10 seconds long, et cetera, et cetera. But it's about sort of staying true to your own brand and making sure that because there's no point in us doing a dance challenge necessarily, because we're not going to do it better than a TikTok influencer. And it's a bit, as you said, Patrick, a bit cringy maybe. So we just choose really interesting news stories because, of course, that younger audience are interested in the news. It's just about presenting it in the correct way. So that's where we're coming from at The Telegraph.
Yeah, it's kind of the same approach at Le Monde. There's no subject that can't be treated on TikTok for us. So as long as we find the right way to present it, we will choose the subject. So we've already covered a wide range of subjects like French politics, economy, science, or Le Tour de France lately. But then it's just, we try to find the subject that we think is the more interesting today. And we still haven't do much of international geopolitics, things like that, which is something very important at Le Monde, but that's our new challenge, to try to go on those subjects now.
Same for us here at the Tagesschau. For us, if you look in the a part of the strategy that deals with news on TikTok, there can be, I'd say there are two sides to this. The one is top news. As I said, we are the Tagesschau on TikTok. We didn't come up with a new name like other brands, for example, AJ Plus or for Al Jazeera, or there are also other competitors in the German market that found use brands for going on social media platforms with younger accounts and reaching younger audiences there. We said the Tagesschau, so we give a promise in a way that you get the news, and this really means you get the news. I go to my team, I say, we need also, there is not a single topic, a relevant topic that we cannot cover on TikTok. It's our task as social media editors to come up with the right, how should I put it, the right angle of the topic that we cover, and that makes the topic interesting for younger persons that deal with it. This is the one hand, so top news and an approach that is really targeted to young audiences, finding the right piece of information that is interesting to them with the top news. And on the other hand, there is, as Julie said, there are these there's these topics that are of special interest for target groups, for the young target groups. Environment, for example, equal rights, for example. These are topics that are extremely important for these young school kids in Germany and worldwide. Fridays for Futures, for example, there is this movement, and this Generation Z, they stand for something. And if you cover these topics, it's also important for them, if you want to get in contact with them, to also put a focus in your strategy, in your news strategy, on these younger topics as well.
I was wondering if you would like to expand a bit more on your, let's say, your creative workflow, because I think many of the people who are watching today, who might be thinking about launching an account on TikTok, might be a bit scared about, like, how do you start? How do you produce the right video? It's okay to focusing on the tone of voice. We build on the kind of content that you might want to bring on the platform, but what's next? What's the next step for all of you?
I can start if you want. So for us, during the summer, we tested a lot of different ways to present news. So as I explained, with drawing, with data visualization, things like that. And for this kind of relaunch in October, we want to really build a community on TikTok. So we want to be much more active on community management. That means obviously answering comments, but also doing some video answer. That is a great feature on TikTok. And also we would like to let the audience choose some subject. That's something we are already doing on Snapchat. So we present 3 or 4 subjects, and we ask the audience which one we should treat the next week, for example. And we also want to develop some live streams on TikTok, because it seems to be working well. So that's something we will work on the next few months.
So for us at The Telegraph, I think it was all about experimentation. So just trying different formats. We've got a really innovative, creative team who are always bubbling, full of ideas. So it's about letting those sort of ideas flourish and not being too precious with the platform or regimented with this works, that doesn't work, because it's very much in its sort of infancy growing stage. So I would advise doing lots of experiments. And then when you have a bit of success with one format, you can repeat that again and again. So the easy one that we've repeated a couple of times is the green screen, because that's doesn't take a huge amount of effort from our side. You just need a good presenter and a great fast-paced script. But then certainly with the more complicated ones, it's great to know that that's a style you can use again. if you're struggling. But I would say remain really flexible, and I think experimentation is the name of the game with TikTok at the moment, which is a really exciting place to be. And I'm sure Julie and Patrick feel the same, that it's not like the days of Facebook where it was a bit of the Wild West, or Twitter. You've got the algorithm, you know how it works. This is actually quite a fun. It feels like we're going back into social media for the first time, which is a really great feeling.
I would totally agree with you, Elise. I wouldn't, when you guys don't have a TikTok account yet, I'd say it's still very early phase in the game. It's in if you compare it to Facebook, to Instagram, the content that is produced for these platforms and YouTube, it's very professional. Over the years, people learned how to create a very good video in terms of storytelling, in terms of design. With TikTok, it's a little different. So I wouldn't build the RAM too high for you to start. I would in a way go with Elise and say, just start, be innovative. Trial and error is the culture you need in your company. So to have the courage to actually start with something there, make up your mind about a strategy that works for your brand, and then try the first videos. Be agile in your development of the videos, look what works. And for example, Francesco, you asked for insight of my team. We started with a very small project team on that. We were only 3 people, 1 presenter, plus a journalistic social media editor. So it was a duo that talked about the topics, that talked about the style. And then we had a motion designer. So we created a unit style, 3 people working on this TikTok project at first, and they created, let's say, 2 videos a week. It wasn't very much at the beginning, not a lot of output we had. So we gave ourselves the time to try to see what TikTok is all about, what works, what doesn't work, and in the end, it's really that. I'd say that discussion with the community, also about your product. We ask our community for feedback on our videos, for feedback on our presenters, and we had the chance to really start also with a community in a way. We restarted the community work because we had 0 subscribers when we started the account. If you look at the other account my teams run, with 2 million subscribers on Instagram, 2.5 million subscribers on Twitter, 1 million on YouTube, and so on, you don't get the chance 2020 to start off with your community again and actually answer the all of the questions you get there. But with a TikTok account, when you start at 0.0, you have the chance to really and worship the feedback, to take it back into your agile development. And I would recommend everyone, if you have the chance to start on that platform, make the experiences and see if it works.
I absolutely agree, and I think it's never too late to join a platform if you have something to say. I think, though, that I need to ask you all a question, because this is kind of the elephant in the room. So you know that this has been a great year for growth for TikTok, but also a very difficult year for TikTok because everything is going on in the US, and many might be worried about putting efforts into launching on TikTok now. Are you worried?
So I'm not particularly, well, I suppose maybe we don't know what will happen with TikTok, the platform, but I'm not worried that these efforts are not worth our while. I think, as mentioned, it's all about brand recognition, and it's about the social media team understanding this new language that's been formed on TikTok. And I'm sure that we'll take this onto different platforms. So, obviously, there's Reels on Instagram now, so we can sort of take those learnings onto there. So it's not necessarily only about the platform; it's about learning that language. So who knows what will happen with TikTok in the future? but I don't think that's any reason to jump off it, because you shouldn't be moving onto these platforms thinking, well, this will be here in 20 years' time. That's not the way, that's not the industry we work in. You should be thinking, this is the audience. How am I going to take this audience along the sort of like life with the Telegraph? So from my perspective, that's my opinion on TikTok.
So for the Tagesschau, I would also agree again with you, Elise. I'd say in this whole discussion, it's not the Tagesschau or the Telegraph or Le Monde that makes TikTok a successful platform. The platform is successful. It's a communication platform for young students. Francesco, in the beginning, you said how successful TikTok is if you look at the app downloads. If you look in the App Store, the Google Play Store, you see it's now in August 2020, it's number one of the downloads. It's the most successful platform a social platform of the moment. And if you ignore this simply as a broadcaster like ours that has by law the task to reach audiences, I'd say that would be a little strange. And so it's not the media that makes the platforms big. I'd say it's the media that, however, needs to watch what happens on these platforms, that needs to be in a way the watchdog also for TikTok and all these discussions that go on about privacy, about the Chinese government that might get involved into user data. It's us, it's the publishers that need to also form strong alliances in terms of investigations we take together and report on that on TikTok, because I think it's our task to report all about these things that young people need to know, to report about TikTok on TikTok. That's what we really do, about all these things that are important to know, and so that the individual user can make up their own mind. And this is what it's all about for me, to actually be a reliable source of information on this platform. Because if the Tagesschau would not be on TikTok, to be honest, it wouldn't make any difference in terms of usage of this app in Germany. And I'd say it's probably the same with the Telegraph and Le Monde. So it's pretty much our task to see progress on their platforms, to put the finger on TikTok and say, hey, we need to make things a little different because we see this and this point. It's important to us, it's important to the users to lead this discussion. And that's actually what we learned from the discourses we have with Facebook, with YouTube. This is what progress in these times of digital transformation, Majas, is all about. Strong brands being in the discussions with the platform itself.
I'm not sure I have something more to add to that. I agree with what Elise said. For us, TikTok obviously is an opportunity to test a new way of presenting news, especially with very short videos. That's something we were not used to do at all. So we are learning a lot with this experiment. And yeah, for the moment, we're not that worried that TikTok will stop in France. But if it was the case, we will have learned great things. So yeah, we're continuing right now in the long term, and we'll see what happens.
Thank you all. I mean, I have so many questions to ask you, but I think it's probably time to be a bit more generous and let some space for our audience questions. I don't know if Angela is here with us and can support us with the questions. Hello.
Hello, guys. How are you doing? Indeed, we have so many questions for you. So let's start. Of course, security and privacy is one of the main ones. So we have here one from here. Oh. Yeah, from Abdul Mohsen Al-Gabbani. So how can you guys protect your device's privacy as journalists since you use American and Chinese applications? Someone would like to start?
Well, on my side, I don't really have the answer to that question. So I'm not in the newsroom and I don't want to speak for them. So I'll pass on this one, sorry.
Well, I don't think we can protect the device that we're doing it on. We're just we've got a social media phone that we use, but no, we're not using any particular thing to protect the data on that phone.
And again, that's what I just said. I don't think it's really our task. We can do it to protect the user data that the user gives to social networks. It's not that it's all about TikTok in this discussion. It's also data we share with Facebook, with YouTube, with pretty much every app we use gets data from the user, and it's important for us to that the users reflect what they do there, and this is what I see our task is all about in a way. However, we also look at what TikTok is doing in terms of the Chinese relationship it has with ByteDance. We see what happens in the US. Of course, it's our duty as a media company to look at these developments and to see if TikTok, for example, crosses a red line. When we started as the Tagesschau, this TikTok project, we said we defined red lines when we said we would stop reporting or having an account on TikTok. And one of these red lines was when our own content, for example, is censored by TikTok, because we as the journalists, we think that this content is important to be known by the audiences. And if TikTok would go there and say, well, we don't give it reach, we take it down from the platform, then we would have an issue. And then we would have a serious issue to say we go out of this platform, and we can report on that as well. And the other red line we said is when there's a proof that the Chinese government gets the data from the users. So far, not even the American security offices were able to find proofs that there is user data that is transferred to the Chinese government, or the Chinese government asking for users' data. So it's a very theoretic discussion at the moment. It's a discussion of tech giants, of course. There's a lot in the political sphere to talk about this. Tech giants like Google, like Facebook from the US, and now a new fresh tech company like ByteDance from China. And of course, it's a conflict that is political and geopolitical, of course.
And if I can just add on top, I think in the question there was something strange. I mean, how can we protect our data if we use American or Chinese apps? There will always be someone who will develop the app we use. The app will always come from somewhere. The point is not who develops the app. I think I'm not a fan of nationalism. I'm not a fan of nationalism, not even in tech. I don't think we should all have just Italian apps or UK or British apps or French apps, depending on where we work. I think the point is if we have agencies and watchdogs that control if the apps are used correctly by whoever has developed them.
See, I think it's different, Francesco. If you are a media company using TikTok to reach young audiences and also reporting about topics, for example, on our own homepages, in our TV bulletin, it's not exclusive stuff we produce for TikTok. It's news we do. And this is something that is important, I'd say. So it's barrier-free in a way for users to use our content as public service media. This is extremely important, even within the European Broadcasting Union. This is a huge topic with all the other publishers we have, like BBC, like France Télévisions. It's the same for them, the same discussion. And then we are a very very uncomfortable partner. If I wouldn't even call us partner for TikTok, because we are a media company using or having an account on TikTok, but there's no partnership. We are not paid by TikTok for doing content there. So this is important when you have these when you are into these discussions, I'd say, about a platform and not being part of this company that runs the platform, for example.
I totally agree.
So yes, we have more questions. Here is one for Barbara D'Amico. So Barbara says, really interesting chat. Just one question. Do you also use TikTok to redirect somehow younger users to your official website platform? If so, which funnel strategy are you applying? Thank you.
So at the Telegraph, we have Linktree, so people can reach the website, but we're not seeing people go in big numbers to the Telegraph website. I think there's a number of things. You've got to leave the platform that you're on, and then also the Telegraph is a subscription model, so that's a sort of a big barrier for some of the younger audiences. So at the moment, it's more about informing and brand awareness for the young people, rather than bringing them to become website users or even subscribers.
For Le Monde, it's the same, and we have the same model, a subscription model on Le Monde. So for now, our goal is really to provide information to people who are only on social medias and who are not going on news websites or things like that. And we just want to make them know who is Le Monde and what is trustworthy information. And yes, we will see later if we find a way to make them move to our website. But I think it's more like being aware that Le Monde exists, and one day when they'll type something on Google about news, they might choose our website better than another one. But this is not something we can track, and there's no funnel on TikTok or things like that.
For the Tagesschau, it's the same. We see ourselves really as a 360-degree brand in a way, meaning we have modular content that we produce for the social media networks as well as for our homepage and app and the TV news bulletin. So we have one topic, but we have different distribution channels and distribution strategies for this topic. However, we see ourselves, or we want to become in a really idealistic world. We would try to become the reliable partner for young users using news and trying to inform themselves about political topics. So the first and main goal is, of course, brand recognition, as Elise said, for us as well. It's all about also fighting against disinformation on that platform that is sometimes given in there by influencers that reach millions of subscriptions and subscribers. So we want to become a reliable partner for news, and we hope that people remember us when they grew older as the reliable partner, and then they use different apps. For example, the news app by Tagesschau, they might see that there's also news bulletin that they can use in smart TV, for example. So there it becomes a really 360-degree brand. However, we give links to our individual videos, but again, as the Telegraph sees it as well, there are not huge numbers of people clicking on that links, and that's part of the honest communication that you need to have here when you try to put up a conversion strategy for people coming back to your homepage. I'd say, or I would give the question back: is your homepage really interesting? Does it have interesting formats for young people? And if you can answer that with a yes, you might get some young people on your homepage as well.
We have here one question from Marta San Roman that says, in your opinion, do you think that Instagram Reels are going to substitute TikTok and will eventually make this app disappear, as has happened with others, or do you think it will prevail?
If I can jump on this one first, I think it's not going to happen as Instagram story didn't erase from the internet snapshot. What will happen probably is that the environment on Instagram will change dramatically, and probably TikTok will have to change as well to still being relevant. But at the moment, what seems to me is that these two apps are trying to, I mean, one hub is trying to fight for the other's audience, but at the moment it's just a matter of still being relevant for Instagram in the times when a new player is arriving on the scene. But it's not a matter of like apps leaving us anytime soon, I think.
I'd just add one quick comment in terms of resources that you put into the production of TikTok videos. For us, we try to see if there's cross-usage possibility of the content we produce, for example, for TikTok, and Instagram stories and Instagram Reels potentially might be a second way of actually getting the videos and the topics that produce for one platform to another without having a lot of effort to put and money to put into this. So this is something that for my department, we always try to check if there's a dual or triple usage of social media content. We put a lot of effort into the production of it. And as I said, a TikTok video for us, if you have motion design, takes 2 days for at the moment, 2 days. And this is a lot of resource that goes into it. So you might try to check if there's another outlet, if there's another channel, social media channel where you can put this video on.
So we have time for one last question, guys. So this one from Jacob Granger. So for journalists trying to penetrate the TikTok market specifically, how do you balance the need to be competitive against popular influencers, but also doing some quality and accurate information?
So for the Telegraph, as I sort of mentioned, it's not a matter of us competing with those TikTok influencers. We're not going to win. It's much more about us giving that reliable information in a style that we're comfortable with, that my editor-in-chief can watch and say, yeah, I think that was pretty good. It's just two different markets. The same on Instagram. We're not competing with Instagram influencers, and the same with Facebook. There's different platforms for different things. I think what we're trying to do is carve out a market for the Telegraph on this platform.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think the point on being on a platform like TikTok, but it's the same on YouTube, for example. We need to find our own audience on the platform and provide content that they like and that will be useful and inform them. But yes, we can't really compete with different kind of contents. I think our competitors for Le Monde on those platforms are not the influencers, because we will never be able to compete with them. That's different. But we are more competing with more new media. In France, for example, there's media like Brut, which is very popular, and it's not a traditional newspaper. So I think we are trying to exist in front of this kind of new media on the platforms, but the influencers are not very our competition. It's different. They get a lot of attention, and we are trying to get attention too, but that's different.
We try to learn a little bit from the influencer. For example, we came up with this strategy of personalization, having our own presenters now in our news videos, young presenters. This is in a way, it is the influencer style. However, I wouldn't see them in a way as competitors. Take it from the other side of the argument. Why don't you take them into the same boat that you sit in? Why don't you, when you think of, for example, interview partners for your reportings, why don't you take these young persons with a lot of subscribers into account of your thinking and try to, when they stand for something specific, for a topic or for something that you want to cover in your reporting, take them as an interview partner, or even get in contact with them. For example, my team now, we talk to the influencers in the information business of TikTok by contacting them in the comment sections, and we have a dialogue there which the user find very interesting in a way, and we might see one or other the one or the other influencer one day in our TikTok video by the Tagesschau. So I would see it as not as a competition, but more as a different way of reporting.
So thank you very much, guys, for being here, for sharing your experiences on TikTok. I mean, we have the live chat almost burning all the time. So we're happy to see that. And thank you, Francesco, Patrick, Elise, Julie, again for being here. And yeah, back to the studio, to Vera, because we are going now to the breakout sessions in different languages. Have a great day.